giving you a voice,
making it loud our own way.
Welcome to the fun.
We need your help to keep fun loud, live, and independent. For just $1, you can be our boss at patreon.com/funfrc. Pledge your support in September and you'll be eligible to win a Cooler Master MS-120 keyboard and mouse set.
Now, so we talked a little bit more with champs. If you have more questions, you have some locations to suggest to us, tag them in chat and we'll get to them later on. We want to move on to our next topic. An interesting thread came out recently on Chief Delphi, which is shocking that there was anything interesting on that train wreck of a website, but it was discussing religious affiliated teams and mentors that they may or may not share the same religious ideals as the school. Specifically, there was a school that was affiliated with a non-sectarian Christian school, and the school has strong standards for teachers, namely agreeing to the school's stated beliefs. The poster said that the school he attends requires volunteers to conform to the school's ideals. So I guess there's kind of an ethical or moral question here that comes into play. Should a school be allowed to do this, or should a school even consider making their mentors fall in line with their moral beliefs by signing some sort of honor code of such? And, for our hosts, would you consider mentoring a team that required you to act a certain way? And, remember, there's a wide range of schools. There's some religious schools where it's just totally normal and chill. There's others where it's a little bit more intense. And if you were a school like this, how could you attract and bring in mentors if you know that your code is restricting to some and it makes a lot of people uncomfortable? So Pat, as our guest, what do you think?
Well, I'll preface this by saying that my high school team was actually at a religious high school, and the team I mentor now is also at a religious high school. And both of them, in fact, are Catholic Jesuit all-boys schools. But it's never been a problem at either school. The school doesn't really ask for us to do anything other than not be bad role models to the students, like watching our language, not making references to drugs or alcohol, competing ethically, and so on. I might disagree a little bit with a lot of what was said on Chief Delphi. I believe pretty strongly in freedom of speech and freedom of association. So I think it's perfectly okay for a school that is not public, not part of the government, to vet their employees and their volunteers for whatever shared beliefs they like, with the caveat that it doesn't violate discrimination law. That said, I personally disagree very strongly with some of their views, especially the views that were mentioned by that school on Chief Delphi. And I personally would feel very uncomfortable mentoring a team whose school had views like that, even if I wasn't personally required to share them or to sign a statement saying that I share them. I think to summarize what I think, I don't think you can force people into believing something. I think it's an extremely ineffective way of changing people's opinions, but that goes both ways. Forcing mentors to profess a faith, or for forcing faith-based organizations to accept conflicting viewpoints. So I'd be pretty opposed to using FIRST as a bully pulpit to try and push more liberal views to these schools. I don't think it would work.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that in the thread a little bit, is that it seemed like there was certainly the potential for it to turn into a situation where there was all these suggestions this is what you should tell your school to do instead. And I'm not sure that's the right call. I mean, I think you nailed it, Pat. Would I personally mentor a team with an agreement like that? No, I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that was kind of in that, what was it called? Statement of faith, statement of belief, whatever the phrasing was. There sort of was this, what any volunteer with the team would need to sign this that says, this is what I believe and this is what I affirm. I don't feel that that's appropriate. It's not what I would believe, but I would just find a different team to work with. But also, to your point about putting kind of other views into that school and trying to make the school go a certain way, it's not a government school. It's not a public school. I'm not about to stop an organization from being able to impact kids positively in STEM fields. If I don't align with that team, I'm not going to join that team, but someone else certainly can. I think the thread was a really delicate topic. I would like to commend, I know we talk about Chief being a bit of a train wreck, the majority of the commenters, or at least a good chunk of them, for keeping it pretty gracious. To the question of advice for the team in terms of how do they actually find mentors that are willing to sign this belief, I think there's a couple of really good responses in the thread, despite the potential for disaster. I think the suggestion of reaching out to parents within the school system is a really good idea. I believe it was the original commenter that said, this is the parents obviously would share the beliefs with their kids, and that's why they choose to send them to the school. Reaching out to the parents in that school community, the families would share the ideals and probably not have an issue signing it because their kids had to sign it. And there are so many first mentoring options that don't involve being an engineer. So even to say like, oh, there's no engineers in our parent group. Well, maybe there's some other really helpful adults. I'm sure there are parents who are willing to lend their expertise. And I think when it comes down to if the school is going to make that requirement that you share the belief system, then yeah, their pool gets smaller, but they also could probably get creative with some awesome parents.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the show gets boring when we all agree, but I mean, I think Pat and Libby were a lot more eloquent than I could be on this. I'm saying Fairbank came in 2020. I'd vote for that right now. But I just think, yeah, the school has the right to do what they want, but I think there's like a bigger pressing issue there because like I also would absolutely, I kind of find their statement reprehensible, and I think it's like to the core, it almost erases certain people from existence, and like that's not cool. And I don't know, like in this program that we all participate in first has these pillars, and one of them is non-discrimination. And like I don't really know, like there's students that I've mentored in the past, and they would feel really, really uncomfortable having to associate with a team like this. And it's like, how do you tell a student, hey, go talk strategy to this team? Oh, by the way, they deny your existence of your gender. Like I couldn't do that. Like that, to me, it would make me a shitty ass mentor. And so that thread left me really uncomfortable. And, yeah, people were being delicate there, but I think the people who called it out was like, yeah, like this, that to me, that's in direct conflict of I don't know how to solve it, because you're right, everyone's allowed to have their own beliefs, but at the same time, as Pat said, they can't be discriminatory. That's where things sort of step in. And I think, they're basically saying you have to deny the existence of certain genders. That's crazy to me. And I thought we were beyond that stuff. But anyways, that's not what you're talking about. In terms of strategies for a team like that, lots of teams have core values and core beliefs. I think all teams do, and they may not have them defined. But when you're trying to recruit mentors, you need to find people who fit in with your value system or are going to be able to adapt to your value system. And so I think it's always strategic to kind of find, like-minded individuals and reach out to various circles or whatever. It's not an impossible challenge, because unfortunately there's a lot of bigots out there, so they can find some other bigot mentors if they really want. But I mean, that's just kind of calling it like I see it.
Mm-hmm. We actually have a couple of comments from chat. The first one, I'm going to skip ahead. I promise I'll get to their stuff too. Is actually from NLSNGM. I think I can read it. Is, hi, I posted the statement of faith details. I disagree with them. I think they can join first, but they need to find people in their community, which is hard to do. But also acknowledging it could have been a bad thread. People with strong opinions everywhere. I think you're totally right, Karthik, and that we tend to agree, I think, on the philosophy here. But it was one time where Chief didn't totally devolve into madness, and I'm pretty happy with that.
But I'm going to disagree with you right there, because I think this is a time where some madness might have been required, because I think that everyone was really trying to avoid stepping on toes, and by avoiding stepping on toes, I mean, there are going to be first students who read that thread and are going to feel like, wow, there's a team out there that doesn't welcome people like me. I'm not welcome. I don't exist. And there's a whole bunch of people kind of not saying anything or not making strong statements against that. There's just sometimes, I hate to play the card, but like a person who, has experienced discrimination in the past, there's nothing more comforting than when someone speaks up for you and says, hey, no, you are valued. I'm not going to let you be treated this way. And so that's why I really did appreciate Madison's post. And I think there was another mentor in there who I don't know, maybe from somewhere, who posted something strong. And I really kind of liked that.
Yeah. Oh, no, I meant madness as in like Chief's usual like insult reaction gifts madness, not genuinely speaking up about issues. I think there was also, I agree with you that there was sort of this idea of like, we don't want this poster to feel bad that we're like trashing on their school's policy, but people have their opinions. I mostly meant that it stayed respectful is a hard word with this context, but like not into a joke, which Chief can often be. So there's actually two of kind of the same question, similar question. A lot of people sharing, by the way, that they are from religious school or religious homeschool teams, where mentors are, in one case, mentors are parents, so the parents share the beliefs, obviously, but also for a team 910, they're from a Catholic school, but their commenters claiming we have plenty of non-Catholic mentors and students. So it's, clearly there's stuff all over the spectrum, but there are two questions in here coming from chat that are, one is, should a school be allowed to not take religious mentors? So let's say you are a public school or I guess maybe you're a private school that has nothing to do with, I don't know what the situation is, but should you be allowed to then say, no, you can't be on the team because of a belief like this, which I think to me is up to the schools and the organization where your team is based out of policies. But then a follow-up kind of to your point about the statement of faith being discriminatory is, should first allow teams who discriminate against other groups to be a part of the organization. I think that's actually a much bigger question, because it kind of goes the core values.
I'm not down with someone discriminating on someone based on their religion. Like that doesn't, like that's just, I'm not okay with that. Like, I don't think we can say like, oh yeah, that's their own choice to do that, because then, that walks you down like a dangerous path. Pat, what do you think?
Well, so I think the answer to both questions is, if you're going to do something, it has to be based on behaviors, not on beliefs or people. I know plenty of religious people who are, very quiet about their faith, which is fine. Faith is a quiet thing. But if I invite a mentor on my team and he starts, preaching at the students, that's a behavior which would not be allowed. Similarly, if a team, started discriminating against a student and first decided this is not okay because an actual student is being impacted, I think that's how you would, you would prevent that from happening.
No, I think that's a really good point, right? The behavior should absolutely not be permitted, but I think there can also be in a discussion like this idea to assign the behavior before it happens. So that's a really important distinction. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you to all of our co-executive producers, keeping fun loud, live, and independent. Pledge your support. Go to patreon.com/funfrc.